Hi everybody, welcome to my channel for another video and another topic that I am super excited to talk to you about today, and that is the topic of binging. This is probably one of the top two questions that I get from people that feel tormented and tortured by this behavior that they cannot seem to get rid of even after many years. And I know that for many people, you can go a lifetime binging and not really understanding why these things are happening to you, and this behavior continues no matter how hard you try. I personally was a binger for probably 2 decades of my life. That's 2/3 of my life that I spent unconsciously binging and then feeling ashamed and guilty and just like physically uncomfortable because, we never feel awesome after a binge. That is just a given. And people feel, not only physically tormented, but emotionally tormented by this thing that we do in secret. Sometimes we feel that we can't even eat in front of people, but then we go ahead and binge when we are alone, and that is just such a painful cycle. So if you are going through this, I do not want to diminish how difficult this is. I am talking about binging in the sense of eating a large amount of food in a short period of time when you are not necessarily hungry, usually followed by an uncomfortable emotion or things like that. I am not talking about binge eating disorder. If you feel that you are experiencing that, that is out of my scope of expertise. So I would suggest seeing a trusted counselor if you feel that this is something that would kind of put you on the line of having binge eating disorder. So I'm talking about like emotional eating style binging and the binging that happens to us when we just eat a large amount of food, in a period of time when we are not hungry. So it could even be unhealthy food, unhealthy, like super hyper palatable foods. That's something that I talk about a lot as well. But I do not want to diminish the severity of eating disorders as we talk about this. So I want to make sure that you know that from the get-go. And I always say that there is a fourth law of physics, and that is the degree to which you restrict is the degree to which you will binge later. And doesn't it always happen like that? Don't you, when you think back to your binges, don't you kind of see a pattern there that it always comes after a period of restriction or deprivation? And I would define restriction or deprivation as either physically and practically depriving yourself, so like of either overall calories in a day or even like a macronutrient. So if you are trying to go on a really low carb diet, when a low carb diet is not something that necessarily works for you, maybe it doesn't make you feel awesome, then I would call that deprivation. I would also say that there is something that goes along with this as well, and that is mental deprivation. So like, let's say that you've been following rules for a really long time and you feel out of control without rules, and you kind of don't know what to do when there are no rules, and you have those things in your head like, I can't eat sugar, I can't eat carbs after 7 p.m., I can't eat bread, I can't eat gluten, I can't eat dairy. When you don't actually know within yourself if those things actually work for you or not, you are just kind of blindly following that because somebody else told you that. Now, food intolerances and food allergies are a real thing, and I would not consider that deprivation if like you actually do have to avoid something that you are not willing to feel the way that it makes you feel when you eat it. I will do another video about that, but that's a whole big other topic. But I want you to know that mental deprivation is a big thing as well, because you could really physically eat the foods, but you could still be thinking, I can't eat this, this is bad, I'm a bad person because of this. And we all know that our bodies are physiological, biological mechanisms, and if you restrict, especially if it's, like I said, a big caloric deprivation, a big time macronutrient deprivation that is not allowing your body to feel fed or satiated, then the body will respond. It is a physiological response to deprivation. And I think it's really important that we understand that, and we understand that it's not necessarily emotional all the time, that sometimes it could be purely physiological because of the way that we are restricting. Now, why might we restrict? We want to lose weight in a certain period of time. We have a specific goal that might not be right for your body, but I really want you to understand that the degree to which you restrict will always have an after effect. Those things are not innocent, and the body will recognize them because the body will work hard to balance you and to keep you in homeostasis. For example, I tried to be keto for a really long time and it just did not work for me. So I would deprive myself of carbohydrates, even though I was doing exercise that required a lot of glycolytic fuel. So things like CrossFit and high intensity interval training, those things require glycogen, which is the source of fuel for the body with that type of exercise. And I didn't have any of that. So my body just went haywire. I would binge, and I ended up gaining a lot of weight because of that. And it wasn't until I started eating more and eating things that worked for my body in the way that I needed to fuel it that I began to feel a lot better. So how do we stop this behavior? How do we really, I'm pausing right now, but because we need to be able to stop this behavior in order to live a life in which we feel free. And that is by opening up the amount of foods that you are eating, allowing yourself to eat the foods that you like and really, really, really want, and to be able to trust yourself around those foods. So if you're wondering how to stop binging, it is by lightening that restrictive load that you are putting yourself on, and by allowing yourself to trust yourself around these foods, allowing all foods. And then I talk about legalization. I will link it below, but that is really allowing all foods. And even though you allow all foods, does not necessarily mean that you need to eat them. So this is the first step in stopping binging. There will be other videos that I will do on this topic, but I want you to know that mentally allowing all foods, saying that you can have all foods, but then from an empowered place saying, I choose to not eat this food, or saying I won't have it instead of I can't have it, and not putting those chains on yourself and not allowing yourself to believe that you have to fit into a specific body and to be a worthy person. Those are the beginning steps. There's so much more involved here. I hope you stay tuned for the rest of the videos in this series that are coming, and let me know if you guys have any more questions. In the meantime, please subscribe to this channel, tell your friends about this video, and let me know if this information was useful to you.